Everyone, in today's episode, I'll discuss a potential property market crash in 2025. It's an interesting topic because a lot of people always say this year to year, whether it's the media or anywhere else. But a few topics I'll get into today are where we are at, what the experts are saying, and will the market crash? Let's get into it. Look, where we're really at the market today is an interesting spot because we really are kind of still in a growth phase of the cycle. And this is just a graph from CoreLogic showing the cities. So this is just your rolling 3-month change in dwelling values. So you'll see here, you've obviously got, Perth and Adelaide out front, followed by Brisbane, all doing very well. Mind you, that's in 3 months. So do that over 12. Brisbane's done nearly 12% alone in a year. It's insane. But anyway, and you can see Perth there is easily done 23 or 24% alone just even now. But you can see then Sydney, Melbourne and Hobart are obviously dragging the chain behind, but still obviously a growth period. Look, the long-term trend really has been very much so an upward trend. Now, obviously, you have different periods. You can see Sydney and Melbourne obviously doing a lot better than other cities over the long term, but you can also see obviously other cities picking up, particularly in other parts. So you'll see that obviously Sydney and Melbourne, particularly when rates are low, have done well. Brisbane and Perth have done well when rates have been higher and commodities have done well. Another trend that just over the long term we should just go through is houses have continued to outprice units. And you can see this is just obviously over the short term, so last 5 or so years, but you can see the premium just going up and up and up over the most part. So in some parts it is, I'd say sort of softening a little bit, but the long-term trend is definitely up. You don't want to be buying units, as simple as that, really. Let's get into what some of the experts are saying. This is an interesting topic because the experts absolutely suck at predicting things. Well, it's not all experts, but a lot of them are terrible. So this isn't necessarily a pro or a con, but this is just an article off the Daily Telegraph, and this is just on realestate.com.au. And you can see here that it just says huge shake-up coming to Aussie homes in 2025. Now, what happens is a lot of the time, though, along here, you get things like this, and I just call it the broken clock prediction. So there's a guy called Harry Dent who's come here about 20 years in a row, and he's predicted a property market crash every time. I don't think he's been right twice, and it hasn't even been a crash, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because even a broken clock tells the time right twice a day. But he's back again, and this is only not long ago. This is only a couple of months ago. He's been saying a 50% decline in Aussie home prices. So let's see how that prediction goes. I don't think he'll be right again. There's other ones too. So it's even local guys coming out. Stephen Keen to climb Kosciuszko after losing bet. Economics professor Stephen Keen will climb more than 200 kilometres from Canberra to the top of Mount Kosciuszko for losing a bet that house prices would fall 40%. So this was a while ago, mind you, but it's still funny because, you get all these experts who think that, it has to happen and all this kind of thing. But anyway, it is what it is. Anyway, that's basically what the experts are saying, and you take it with a grain of salt. That's all I'm going to say, really. Let's get into what the market needs to crash. So there's a couple of things. First of all, you need a very large oversupply. Second of all, you need next to no demand. You also need declining affordability. You need very little equity in the market and strong financial instability. Let's first of all get into the housing supply. So let's just have a look at some graphs here, and this is from ABS and Matusik. So you'll see here you've got the supply and demand, oversupplied and undersupplied component here. This is just off obviously a graph, so they've just aggregated this out, and you can see where we are right now. We're clearly extremely undersupplied there. You can clearly see that, very obvious. That's just on the left-hand graph, and then you can see also just on the right-hand graph our actual dwellings being completed. So it's actually going down whilst we need more housing and we've got undersupply. So that is not going to help at all. What do the numbers say? This is just again from Matusik and the ABS. Now, the key part we need to look at here is the dwelling numbers and completion and the demand. And then the most key part is actually the difference. So this was in 2023. Mind you, it's actually got worse since then. So you probably want to times these numbers by about 25% up or something like that to make it somewhere near, like should I say aggregated? That's on the total. But some areas are worse, some areas are a little bit better. But you can see not a single market there, apart from the ACT, which it has about 11 people in it, basically, has a positive, should I say, demand to supply ratio. So, and that's only got worse. So that's what the numbers say in terms of supply and demand as well. Housing supply, this is total property listings. You can see the trend there. We're literally down probably that looks like about 30 to 40% on just total listings. That's just from SQM. So we've got more demand but less listings, and you look at the days on market just going straight down from there as well. So no good. Rental vacancy rates. So to give everyone an idea, the rental vacancy rate that's in the actual black is the rolling average. The red is what it is today. There is not a single market there, apart from Canberra again, that is literally better off than it was. Every market, well, Hobart's almost the same, but every other market, well, mind you, that's Hobart after it's doubled in value and rental value. Every other market is literally almost half as, like it's half as good almost as what it was before. If you look at especially WA, especially Perth and regional WA, it's just atrocious what's going on there. So, it's not looking too good on that front either for a crash. It's looking very strong, like crazy. And then, despite all of that, we've got mass immigration, absolute mass immigration. So, and it's not, mind you, like it's not only the Labor Party that's doing this. The trend is up over the long term. So, if we look at, so you'll see sort of post World War II, we obviously started it, but particularly since the early 90s, you'll see that plotted trend graph, the forecast graph and trend graph, it being clearly up. And you look at, 2024 numbers and just plot at where they're looking at, even from that. So that red is the actual government's estimate of where it's going, but who knows what they're going to do. Like they said they'd cut it a lot. They said, I think that from memory they'd make it down 350,000 overseas immigrants or something like that. We've had around like nearly 600,000 of them or so in a year. So that's not really looking good either. You've got less supply, higher demand, and then you're bringing in more people. What do you think is going to happen to the market? It's just insanity. Anyway, let's continue off again. So we talked about equity value that would need to happen as well in terms of the property. Now, Aussies are literally richer than they ever have been before. So this is just off some ABS data again, and you'll see here the net wealth going up and the liabilities going up, but at a much slower pace. So that means that Aussies actually are wealthier in terms of net wealth than ever, which is the only thing that really matters in that sense. So for a market crash to happen or something to go wrong, Aussies would need to be poorer and feel less wealthy, and that's not the case on stats. Sure, in some areas it might be, but definitely not for the large part of the market. Now, let's just get into it. Will the market crash? What do I genuinely think? Look, go through a few things here. Look, there's too little supply and huge demand, and describe that through every graph you could see. And also on top of that, you've got an immigration and equity value that is increasing like wildfire, so that doesn't help. Furthermore, with international and domestic pressure, we've got interest rates that are probably likely to fall this year. So, look, that makes it even more unlikely. So the short answer to this is it's extremely unlikely to happen. I don't think it will. If I were to give a likelihood of a market crashing, it would be less than 1%. And the Australian market has only once crashed, truly, in the 1890s. It's the only time it's ever crashed, and we didn't have a market like it is today. It is completely different. So I'd probably even go to say it'd be less than 0.1% of it actually happening. However, again, I'll mention as I've described to everyone else before, cities are at different stages of their cycle. So doesn't mean they're going to crash, but it does mean that the growth will slow for some cities earlier and others will start to pick up. So again, if you want to look at this episode, it's property clock for each city. There's where all the cities are at. You can see Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunny Coast, Perth and Adelaide are close to the boom of their cycle, the peak of their cycle, whereas Wollongong, Sydney, the Central Coast, Newcastle, Geelong and Melbourne are sort of close to the bottom of their market. They're around that stabilizing phase. So just keep that in mind. But just want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in again. And if anyone is actually serious about getting into the market, first of all, subscribe to this channel. And second of all, book me through a consult through my website, and definitely sign up to Premier Properties with above a 13% total return. So that is 30-year capital growth core logic data and gross rental yield. From this, I actually want the capital growth component to be higher, simply because that gives you a higher internal rate of return longer term, because rental yield slides down as capital growth goes up over time. And the reason for that is capital growth will do 7 to 10% long term, rental yield will only do 3 to 4%. And if rental yield did 7 to 10%, the average home in Australia would rent for $2,500 to $3,000, but it doesn't. It rents for about $650 to $700 a week. So that's the reason. But thanks again, everyone, and have a great day ahead.